Hi friends, welcome to Whizbusters. I'm Emma and today I'm going to show you how to use data validation capabilities in Google Sheets. Firstly, we will look at how to create an in-cell drop-down menu list. Secondly, we will look at creating input cells for valid email addresses, then input cells where a calendar shows to choose the dates, then the option to input valid URLs, and finally the option to insert tick boxes with customized values. Before we begin, to stay updated with new videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notified of the latest videos out. And today I'm going to show you how to create an in-cell drop-down list in Google Sheets. Like this, where you click it and you can see a list from which to choose. Now there are two ways we can do this in Google Sheets, by referencing a range of cells, and two, by inputting a list of items. Let's look at method 1, referencing a range of cells. In our table here, in the first column, individuals can type in their names and select values from a drop-down menu in columns B, C, and D, one for state, decision, and grade, respectively. We will create a drop-down menu in the cells in column B from the provinces in column F. To do this, firstly, select the cells you want to create the drop-down menu for. So let's select B2 to be 1000. Click Data, so let's scroll back up, just so you can see at the top. Let's click Data, click Data Validation. Then a dialog box comes up. The first part, Cell Range, has the range of cells we selected, which is B2 to B1000. Below this is Criteria. Here is a drop-down menu, which has different options, including List from a range, List of items, number, text, date, Custom formula is, and tick box. Choose the option List from a range. Then in the next box here, you can select the range from which you have the list. So let's move this aside. So you can click this icon that looks like a table, then a box pops up to select the range. Click inside the box and select F2 to F14. Let's make this an absolute reference. Click OK. Then our original dialog box reappears. Click Show Drop-Down List in Cell. If this is clicked, you will see the arrow to the right end of the cell. Below this states On Invalid Data, and there are two options from which you can choose, Show Warning and Reject Input. Show Warning means users can type in a value that is not from the drop-down list, and a warning will appear at the top right corner of the cell. If you don't want users to enter any items other than that which is in the drop-down menu, then select Reject Input. So let's select Reject Input. You can check the box Show Validation Help Text to show instructions when users hover their cursor over the cell. Here is the default text for the instructions. You can change this text if you want to by inputting it here. Click Save. Notice that the cells in column B have an arrow to the right end of the cell. If we click the arrow, the list of provinces from which to choose appear. Let's choose Alberta, AB, for Bob. For Anna, let's try typing something in the cell which is not from the drop-down menu, like TX. Let's type in TX, then press Enter. Notice a pop-up box appears stating there was a problem. Click and enter a value from the menu. This is because we chose Reject Input in our original dialog box. Let's click OK. Let's go back in and make some changes. Select cells B2 to B10. Let's click Data Validation. Let's unclick Show Drop-Down List in Cell and see what we get. Click Save. Notice the arrow is gone, but if you double-click the cell, let's double-click this one, you will see the list from which to choose. Let's go back into the dialog box. Let's select all the cells from B2 to B1000. Click Data Validation. Let's click Show Drop-Down List in Cells, and let's click Show Warning. Click Save. Our cells have the list from the drop-down menu, but let's type in a value that is not from this list. So let's put TX under Cho. Notice the cell accepted the value, TX, but a red triangle appeared at the top right corner with the comment, "Invalid input must fall within specified range." So we use this option if we want to allow users to input items other than from the drop-down list. To remove the validation, you can select all of the cells B2 to B1000, and we click Data, Data Validation, and we click Remove Validation. Notice that it's gone. If we double click, nothing is there. So let's remove these. So let's undo this. Control Z a few times so it comes to what we want. We want to get it in the first way we did it. Let's move on to method 2 of creating an in-cell drop-down list. And that is by creating a list of items. To do this, let's select cells C2 to C1000. Let's click Data, Data Validation. The same dialog box appears. This time under Criteria, we would select List of Items. The box next to it changes to Enter Item separated by a comma. So in this box, let's list the items we want to have in the drop-down menu. Let's put yes, comma, no, comma, undecided. Let's click Reject Input, then click Save. Now the cells in column C has arrows to the right of the cell. And when clicked, we can see that it's yes, no, or undecided. We can try this with grade as well. Let's select cells D2 to D1000. Data, Data Validation. Under Criteria, choose List of Items. In the box next to the criteria chosen, let's list the items 1 to 5, separated by commas, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's click Reject Input, and let's put Show Validation Help Text. Let's click Save. Let's go to our first few cells, and then we can see that in our drop-down list, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can choose. If we try typing in 30, we get an arrow. There you go, my friends. That's how you make an in-cell drop-down list in Google Sheets. To do this, firstly select the cells you want to allow only email addresses as input. So let's select cells E2 to E1000. So we did. So let's scroll back up, click Data, and next let's click Data Validation. A dialog box comes up. The first part is cell range, and that has the range of cells we selected, which were E2 to E1000. Below this is Criteria. Here is a drop-down menu which has different options including List from a range, List of items, number, text, date. Custom formula is tick box. Choose the option Text. There is a drop-down menu here next to text, and there are options which says Contains, Does not contain, Equals, Is a valid email, Is a valid URL. So choose Is a valid email. Below this states On invalid data, and there are two options from which you can choose. Show warning, which means users can type in a value that is not from the drop-down list. And if you do not want users to enter any items other than a valid email address, then select Reject Input. So let's select Reject Input, which is the default. You can check the box Show Validation Help Text to show instructions when users hover their cursor over the cell. Here is the default text for the instructions. You can change this text if you want to by inputting it here. Click Save. So let's try typing in an email address. Let's type whiz@whizbusters.com. So Click inside the cell and keep your mouse on the cell. Notice options for emails arose, such as add to contacts, send email, schedule an event, send message, and start a call. So let's try typing in an invalid email address and see what happens. So let's type in Whizbusters. I pressed enter and a dialog box pops up stating there was a problem, enter a valid email. So let's click OK. The reason why this happened is because we clicked reject input and this error came up, which does not allow any invalid email address to be entered in the cell. So suppose we did not check the reject input option like this. So click cell E3 and data validation, show warning, and click save. And then we typed in Whizbusters. Press enter. There is a red triangle at the top right corner which says invalid, input must be a valid email address. Let's undo this. There you go, my friends. That's how you create an input cell which will allow only valid email addresses. Show you how to create an input cell where a valid date must be entered. And you can choose from a calendar when you click the cell in Google Sheets like this. The first step to add an input cell which allows a valid date is to select the cells you want as input. So let's select cells F2 to F1000. Click data validation, then a dialog box comes up. The first part, cell range, has the range of cells we selected, which were F2 to F1000. Below this is criteria, and here is a drop-down menu which has different options including list from a range, list of items, number, text, date, custom formula is, and tick box. Choose the option date. Then the dialog box changes and there is a drop-down menu next to date. And these are the options: is a valid date, equal to, before, on or before, after, on or after, between, and not between. So let's choose is a valid date. Below this states on invalid data, and there are two options from which you can choose: show warning and reject input. If you do not want users to enter items other than a valid date, then choose reject input. Otherwise, they can enter a number or enter an input and a warning will be shown. Below this, there is appearance, and if you check the box, which means show validation text, you'll see instructions which state enter a valid date. You can change the instructions by typing it in this box. Click save. Let's scroll to the top. There does not seem to have any apparent change to cells visually, but if you double click it, let's double click here, you can see there's a calendar. So let's say we want to choose February 1st. We can also directly type into the cells, such as in cell F3, we can type 2021, 03, and 18. Press enter and it accepted it. You can double click this cell and see that it is the 18th of March that's highlighted. So let's try inputting a word or something that's not a date. So let's try typing in Whizbusters and notice a dialog box pops up stating that there was a problem, enter a valid date, because we clicked the reject input option, and that's why this message came up. This does not allow anything other than a valid date to be entered in the cell. Suppose if we did not check reject input like this, so if we chose this cell, we choose data validation, and we chose show warning, save, and let's try typing in Whizbusters. Press enter, it did accept it, but there is a warning which says invalid, input must be valid. So let's undo that, and let's double click, and let's choose date. Perfect. There you go, my friends. That's how you create an input cell which will allow only valid dates. How to create an input cell where a valid URL or website must be entered using Google Sheets, like this here. The first step to creating an input cell where a valid URL or website must be entered is to select the cells you want to allow all URLs as inputs. So let's select cells G2 to G1000. Let's click data validation. A dialog box comes up, and the first part is cell range, and that has the range of cells we selected, which were G2 to G1000. Below this is criteria. Here is a drop-down menu, which has different options, including list from a range, list of items, number, text, date, custom formula is, and tick box. Choose the option text. Then the dialog box changes. And there is a drop-down menu here which says contains, does not contain, equals, is a valid email, is a valid URL. Choose the option is a valid URL. Below this states on invalid data, and there are two options, show warning and reject input. Show warning means users can type in a value that is not from the drop-down list, and a red triangle warning will appear at the top right corner of the cell. And if you do not want users to enter any items other than a valid URL, you select reject input. You can check the box show validation help text to show instructions when users hover their cursor over the cell. And here is the default text for the instructions. You can change this text if you want to by inputting it here. Click save. Let's scroll all the way up and let's type a website name. So let's type whizbusters.com. If you hover, we see some information, we can click it and it takes us to the website. Perfect. Now let's put in cell G3, let's type in another text. Let's say we wanted to type an email address instead. So we type this in, press enter. A dialog box pops up stating there was a problem, enter a valid URL. So click OK. And this happened because we clicked reject input that this message came up. So this does not allow any invalid URL to be entered. Suppose we did not check the reject input option. So let's click cell G3, go to data, data validation, and choose show warning. Click save. Let's just type in any text. So let's put whiz@whizbusters.com, press enter. Well, there is a warning that says input must be a valid URL. It has picked up that it's not a URL. It allowed you to input it, but it gave you a message. So therefore, if you want to guarantee only URLs, then you choose the reject input option. So data, data validation, and show reject input. There you go, my friends. That's how you create an input cell which allows only valid URLs. How to insert a tick box in cells using Google Sheets, like this. There are two ways you can insert a tick box in a cell in Google Sheets. I'll show you them here. The first way is through the data validation menu. Firstly, select the cells you want to insert the tick box. Let's select the cells H2 to H1000. Then click Data, Data Validation. A dialog box comes up. The first part, Cell Range, has the range of cells we selected, which were H2 to H1000. Below this is Criteria. Here is a drop-down menu, which has different options including List from a range, List of items, Number, Text, Date, Custom Formula is, and Tick box. Choose the option Tick box. Then the dialog box changes. The default value for when a box is ticked is true, and unticked is false. But you can change that here if you want by clicking here. Use custom cell values. When we click it, two entries appear. You can change the value for ticked here, say as verified. So let's do verified. And the unticked as unverified. Below this states on invalid data, and there are two options, show warning or reject input. So let's say we select reject input. In this case, you do not want users to enter any other items other than to check or uncheck the tick box. Under this is Appearance, which has show validation help text. So if you check it, you will show instructions when users hover their cursor over the cell. So this is the default text, enter verified or unverified. And those were specified as we indicated here. If we did not put this, let's say if we did not put this, then it says enter true or false. So let's undo that and let's put verified, unverified for custom values. Then click save. Notice each cell has a tick box. If we check off, say H2, notice that over here it says verified. This is because we type this in the dialog box to custom values. If you click inside the unticked checkbox, if you click inside the unticked cell, you'll see the word unverified. Suppose if we did not check type in verified and unverified, what will happen? So let's select H2 to H1000, click data validation, and under criteria, we uncheck use custom cells, click save. Notice that if we go to the top, this is checked and it is true. This is unchecked and it is false. The second way to insert a tick box in Google Sheets is a very quick way and can be used if you want to keep the default values of true and false for the checked and unchecked tick boxes. Let me show you how. Select the cells you want to insert the tick box. So we would say true. Let's select I2 to I1000. Click insert, click tick box. Notice tick boxes are now in column I. And notice that if we check this, the value is true and the unchecked ones are false. There you go, my friends. That's how you create an input cell with a tick box. Thank you for watching this video and hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to get more videos like this and hit the bell to get notifications of the latest videos out. See you in the next video.